All right, welcome back to this edition of the Comics Multiverse. Today we're going to be talking about a Kickstarter project. I think I found out, I was just scrolling through Facebook and I saw the ad, and it definitely caught my attention because it is very politically, it's political, but if that's it. It's free. It's for me, okay? It's political. It's for me. But let me stop babbling. It's American Greatness, and it's by Andy Crawford. Let me bring him in and let him talk about the project, and I'll stop babbling. How's it going, Andy?
Oh, just fine. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. So before we get into talking about your project. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your history as a comics reader and as a writer.
Sure. So I've been reading comics since I was a kid. I was never I always liked the superhero stories, but I was not a regular reader of the superhero stories. I certainly watched the cartoons, and I remember playing role-playing games for Marvel and DC. I loved making superheroes with those role-playing game systems. And my brother read comics a bit more than I did, and he got me into several sort of probably non-traditional maybe comic series. The one that stands out the most and I think was most influential to me was Transmetropolitan.
Yes, love it.
Yeah, that might be my very favorite comic book of all time. And I just love the art style, but I love the story and the originality to the setting, and the characters are terrific. So, I love comics. I've been a comic reader for a long time, but I'm not I don't love comics more than I love movies or more than I love, traditional novels and fiction. I love all, I love all sorts of created universes, science fiction, fantasy, all the related genres, as well as more traditional genres. I just love stories. And for my writing background, this is the very first comic book I've ever tried to write. I have written a few novels and a few short stories. My most recent novel before this project is a science fiction novel called Spin Down. And before that, and that's basically a murder mystery on a spaceship. And before that, I wrote a fantasy novel that was sort of a homage and a little bit of a satire of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones called The Pen is Mightier. And my very first novel was a traditional fantasy, I guess you'd call it, called Sailor of the Sky Sea. And it was my attempt to make a sort of American history analogous fantasy as compared to more traditional European analogous fantasies. And written a few short stories as well.
Very nice. So you said this is your first attempt at your first time writing a comic. Let's talk about the project, American Greatness. Make comics great again.
Yeah. Well, this one started out as a novel, and originally it was a novel called Cultural Practices of the Heartland, which I decided was not a comic-esque title. So I changed the title for a comic book, but it was so visually striking, the images in the story and the humor especially was so. I think it worked well. I thought it was funny as a novel, but I thought it would be much funnier, much more entertaining, and really stand out more as a comic book. And so I reached out on Reddit to see if I could find any artists that were interested, and I found a terrific artist, a Chilean artist named Seb Valencia, who was interested, and we created the mock-up cover and some working pages. I tried to submit to various comic book companies, and that didn't work out. So now I'm trying the Kickstarter to raise enough money to pay the artist to finish the project. and hopefully have leftovers for marketing and stuff.
So give us a little overview of the project of the comic.
Sure. So it's so the tagline I use it's the last 8 years of American politics distilled into a revolting, orange-haired, tiny-fingered, 1,000-foot monster tromping through the American heartlands. And the image actually came to me in a dream a couple of summers ago, and it was a dream of Donald Trump as a monster, as a kaiju monster essentially. But it was an aimless kaiju. It didn't intend anything in particular. It was essentially a mindless beast. And what intrigued me was not what the monster was funny and interesting, but what really intrigued me was in my dream, people started to worship the monster. And I thought that was so similar in some ways to the Trump phenomenon of how Trump has captured a part of the country, and it's not about issues or about policy. It's really about personality and emotion. And I thought this could really explore that phenomenon, And the story, the monster is central to the story, of course, but the story is more about what this monster, what the reaction to the monster says about America, what drives people. And I don't claim to have all the answers. I don't, solve the issue of what created Trump. Why is Trump so successful? Why is he so popular? I don't claim to have all those answers, but I think I explore them in a fun way. And so that's I think where the story comes from.
And so you said that the story follows the Trump monster. Who are the other characters, I guess, that readers
will meet? The main character is a journalist named Fred Millard. He's a New York newspaper journalist. I have a little bit of fun with how rare newspaper journalists are these days. But he's a kind of an old-fashioned beat journalist who's assigned to follow this monster, report on the monster, report on the fandom that's created. There's a crowd that follows the monster everywhere he goes. And there's also, governments, you might call it watchdogs or governments researchers that are following the monster. And so the characters, the main characters are journalists. Other characters are other journalists, some scientists, some of the fans of Trump, the people who have latched on and are following him around almost like groupies, and the monster itself, of course.
So do you have a bigger story than just one issue that you would like to tell?
Yeah, the bigger story is it's because it's not just about these people. It's also about other characters. I also should have mentioned other characters are public officials, politicians, and pundits on the news, it's about what this kind of fandom does to the country, and what and it's a lot also about conspiracy theories, things like QAnon, what drives and how those are tied. Those phenomena are kind of tied to Trump and Trump's supporter network and enabler network. And so it's partially about what drives people towards Trump, but it's also about what motivates people to behind the scenes, not just his voters, but his enablers, his funders, the people who it's a lot about the people who make money now. And I say about Trump, the story will be about people who make money off the monster. They might sell memorabilia, or In some cases, they might sell some of the disgusting bodily emissions that the monster leaves behind. And it's not a G-rated story. I'll say that it's a bit raunchy, but I think it's meant to show what it seems to me, how supporters of Trump and enablers of Trump rationalize and justify bad behavior. And so some of the, I suppose, disgusting imagery in the comic is meant to viscerally demonstrate what many people are willing to accept and even support from Trump.
So as a, somebody who's written, novels, how was the transition for this being your first comic to be writing for the comic page? What lessons did you learn, and did your artist kind of help guide you with stuff?
Yeah, my artist was very helpful. I also have an aunt who's written children's books. So she's worked with artists before. She gave me a little bit of advice. She said, don't tell the artist what you want to see, show them. Find pictures that demonstrate what you're looking for. And so that was very helpful. Google image search to find various expressions, various facial expressions from Trump that I want to see in the monster, or various imagery. I remember one particular panel. The monster is so huge and so towering. It's all analogous to the tallest skyscrapers in New York. And and it made me remember my first visit to New York, how utterly immense those buildings seemed, almost like you couldn't even perceive how big they were. And so I found some pictures that demonstrated that kind of thing. And so that was and the artist himself, he was very helpful in, because I gave him some of the snippets from the prose, and he gave me suggestions on, how that could look on the page.
And how did that kind of help you decide, or figure out how to, do your panel, what to show, why you want to show in that panel and on the page?
Absolutely. Yeah. He was very helpful. Seb Valencia, he's had a lot of experience with comics. So he was, immensely helpful to determining where everything goes, how to show action, and movements, and he's as responsible for this project certainly as I am.
So this being your first Kickstarter experience, how has it been? I know you're only a few days into your campaign, but how has it been so far, and what do you expect?
Well, I didn't know what to expect. It's been nerve-wracking, certainly, and the amount of advice online and recommendations it's almost endless, and it's hard to figure out what is the most effective way. I'd say it's I certainly haven't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. So I think the most effective the success. I guess I've had a little bit of success in that I'm, less than a quarter of the way through the time period, and I've raised more than a quarter of the amount of money. So that's a little bit of success. I know some people probably raise it all in the first few days. So I certainly haven't had that kind of success, but the success I've had has probably been reaching out to social media friends and contacts that I've already made along the years, whether as a writer, not that I've been, hugely successful as a writer. I still have a day job, but so social media and other websites that I have a presence on that are, I don't know if you'd call them social media, old-fashioned discussion boards is mm-hmm. really what they are that I take part in, and so I think I've probably gotten the majority of contributions from those platforms. I have tried some ads on Facebook. So I don't know how successful.
That's how you found me.
That's right. So that's true. that could justify the cost in itself. So I have tried ads on Facebook. I think I'll try some ads on Reddit. Thinking back, maybe I should have had a much more detailed plan from the beginning instead of fumbling around as I'm going. But it's been nerve-wracking, but it's been very interesting, and I'm certainly excited to see where it goes.
So, I mean, again, you're only a few days into your campaign. Have you got any like pushback from people that, people that've seen the campaign and want to, I don't know, because some of those people like to, threaten and do bodily harm. Then,
Well, in a tongue-in-cheek way, I would love to see my face on some, MAGA internet board with a threat, just because that might raise the profile of my project. But I having a family, I'm probably not really serious about that. But the Facebook responses have certainly been mixed, because when I choose an audience for Facebook ads, there's no way to distinguish. At least there's no way that I know of or could I figure out to distinguish between liberals and conservatives, or Republicans and Democrats, or fans of Trump and, people who don't like Trump. I just basically picked comic book fans. I picked people who've, indicated their interests include comic books. And so that has meant that there's a lot of conservative and, Trump appreciative comic book fans who have not appreciated my ad, and they've made it very clear in the comments below. And I've usually deleted the ones that are most. Some of them are pretty vitriolic, pretty hateful, and I just delete those. But there's been support and interest as well, certainly.
I take it you're not advertising on Truth Social.
Maybe I should.
I don't know. So, what do you hope that people take away from the book, if anything? If you are funded and you get to tell your story.
Well, if I get to tell the whole story, I mean, this Kickstarter is just for issue number 1. Ultimately, I think the whole story would take 5 or 6 issues. If I can tell the whole story, I think my most the biggest thing I'd like people to take from it is laughter.
Yeah.
And I hope people will find it funny, and a funny way to retell the last several years, essentially, because it touches on politically savvy readers will probably notice just about almost every named character who's a public figure, a politician, is analogous to a real world figure. And it might be fun for readers to figure out who I'm lampooning with various characters, because there's no Trump in my story. There's no that phenomenon didn't happen, or at least it only happened in the form of this monster in my story. But I try to lampoon all the various Republicans who have switched sides, sometimes multiple times. First they hated him, then they loved him, then they hated him again, and now they love him again, And so I would hope that people would take away laughter and entertainment. I don't think I will have solved the Trump question of what created Trump, although the story posits that the biggest enabler of Trump, the biggest motivation behind those who enable Trump is money, is grift, is that, supporters aren't necessarily driven by grift. They'd probably be driven by various emotions, whether it's fear of others, fear of migrants, fear of immigrants, fear of LGBTQ people. And I'm sure some are driven by genuine policy interests, but those who are really behind Trump, who fund him and the folks like Steve Bannon, who strategized for him. I think the biggest motivation for them is money and grift. Is that this is an angle for them to make a lot of money from Trump supporters. You see it with the stocks, the Trump stock. I think that has been in the news lately, but you see it from everything Trump tries to sell, and everything Trump tries to sell. There's probably 100 or 1,000 of other people who try to sell their own knockoffs or their own equivalents, for Trump memorabilia or whatever. So it's a mix. It's entertainment. I think it has a lot of it's analogous in a lot of ways to our recent history, and perhaps it explains some of the motivations behind those who have worked hardest to make Trump successful.
So do you I mean, let's say something happens, with the current court. Do you have a different ending for the story, or does it kind of set in?
Well, I love the ending. I really hope I get to show it in a comic book form. I think the ending is a lot of fun and a big laugh. So I tend to doubt that I would change the ending depending on how the next several months goes. If Trump wins the next election, boy, that would. I'm
moving to Canada.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd feel terrible about that for the country. I'm not sure how that would impact my story. But if my story were very successful, I would certainly think about where it might go further. But the ending as it is right now is I think a pretty clean wrap up of what the story is meant to tell, what the story is meant to say, and demonstrate.
So we have a little bit longer. Do you have time to play 5 questions?
Sure, be happy to.
Okay, so first question, and no particular order. Who are your top 5 presidents?
Top 5 presidents. Oh wow. Let's see. Abraham Lincoln. I thought Barack Obama was a very good president. FDR. And these are not in any particular order. Ulysses Grant, I think, is a very underrated president. He really spent a lot of political capital taking on the white supremacists of the day. Even if he wasn't successful in every area, I thought he was a great moral leader on that issue. So that's 4. A 5th. I'll say John Quincy Adams. I always like John Quincy Adams.
Okay. Question number 2. Who are the writers, and they can be comics or any genre, that influence your writing, or that you kind of look to as inspiration?
Well, for comics, certainly Warren Ellis, writer of Transmetropolitan. Other writers, George R. R. Martin. I'm still a huge fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, as much as I was a little disappointed with the end of the TV show. but I had been reading his series since I was 16 years old in 1996. I think it was maybe I was 18. And that was when they were first being written, before they were big hits. And I remember telling all my friends about it. Let's see, Cormac McCarthy. Blood Meridian is probably my overall very favorite novel. It's a very challenging novel, certainly very dark, but I think it really has a lot to say about violence in America, violence in American history. Let's see, who else? Well, my mind's a blank, so I'll leave it there for now.
Sure. Okay, if I were to strand you on a desert island and allow you to only take 5 things to read, comics or books, and just because I'm a nice guy, I'll let you take like full run. So let's say you could take the full run of Transmetropolitan. So
Well, I would certainly take the full run of Transmetropolitan.
we'll say four. Four of them.
4 of them, yeah. I'll take the full run of A Song of Ice and Fire. Let's assume it's been finished. I'll take Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I still read that every couple of years. And my favorite book, I'd say as a child was, or a young person, was Watership Down. So I'll take that one as well.
Okay. Question number 4. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading Toxic Prey by John Sanford. It's just it's a fun action sort of murder mystery suspense thriller. I find those very relaxing, those sorts of books. I recently finished, and I should have mentioned him as one of my favorite authors, Bernard Cornwell. I recently finished one of his more recent Napoleonic War books about Richard Sharp, a British soldier. And I always enjoy those.
Okay. Our last question. Who are you voting for in November?
I will be voting for Joe Biden. I will be voting down the Democratic ticket. I think the Republican Party is
it's lost its way.
It's lost its way. It's beyond the pale right now. The only Republicans I could consider supporting would be those who have directly stood up and denounced Trump and Trump's support and Trump's enablers and Trump's behavior without going back on what they said. And there are almost none of those left. Certainly not in my community.
I was going to say, because during the primary, everybody's like, he's bad, and then it's like, oh, yay! Yeah, I know, because as a student of political science, I know it's the rally around the the person who you think has the best chance, but that's a sad state when that's your best chance.
Yeah, it really is sad, and we'll see how these various prosecutions turn out. I just hope he's ultimately held to account, and certainly hope he loses the election.
Well, let's end this interview on a high note. Give us one more pitch for your book and where people can find you on social media and such. Sure.
So pitch for this project. I think it's really entertaining, really funny. It's more meant it takes politics lightly. I would say it's not a particularly serious book, although it does treat the phenomenon as if it were as serious as it really could be. And so I know a lot of liberal and progressive folks might be really tired of hearing about Trump. This is really, I think, more making fun of Trump and the Trump phenomenon and everything around Trump and the conspiracy theories around Trump. And so I would really hope you take a look. It's called American Greatness on Kickstarter. You can find me, Andy Crawford, on social media. I'm not terribly active, but you can find me on Twitter. I have a Mastodon account and Facebook and Instagram. And I really hope you'll take a look at my Kickstarter. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining and chatting about the book, and best of luck on your first Kickstarter and your first comic. Hopefully when you're kickstarting or getting ready to kickstart issue 2, then we can have you back, and then hopefully the news will be different, and we'll have some good news considering what's going on in the world today.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And we'll continue to follow the project over on Comic Watch every week in our crowdfunding corner. It posts at noon, and yeah, uh, it's just a chance for us to kind of highlight some of the projects that may not get the visibility that other higher, more popular creators may do. But so again, thank you for taking the time, and best of luck, and look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.